Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Nick, and today we are talking about the law of non-resistance. We are continuing our series on working with the law by Raymond Hollywell and diving into one of my very, very favorites, the law of non-resistance. You can find notes and any other recommendations for books, etc. on our website at illuminationacademy.net/INK128.
Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set. Hey, Kisma.
Well, hello there. Episode 128. I'm kind of proud of us. It's episode 128.
For sticking with it.
Yeah. I mean, it was funny. I had a meeting with somebody today about our podcast. She's so cool. It's just giving us tips. And I said, well, we used to be called Kisma the Dark Yogi. And she's like, oh, that's a good name. And I said, yeah, there's just a little bit of problem with the dark yogi thing.
Yeah. Energetically, it was not congruent.
Yeah. She got that too.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like the podcasting is not for the faint of heart.
No,
not
at all.
They make it seem so easy. It's just have a podcast.
It's not easy. It's not hard because we don't believe in hard. It's a
process.
It's a process. Thank you, Papa. It's a process. It's a challenging process. It's a rewarding process. And, I think people can do it more simply than we do. We're a little bit picky with the sound. And we got our guy, Chris, who's amazing for other podcasters listening. Mm-hmm. Chris Wright, let me know if you want to be connected with him. And we've got Jason helping us and Tony helping us. I know people can do it just, easy breezy, but here we are talking big stuff, big topics. We need a big show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think our gold alchemies would settle for something less than that.
Yeah.
But we do, I think one of the things that I really enjoy.
I just have to interject. You're a gold silver. I'm a gold.
You are more gold than I.
My meticulousness.
That is true.
Just needed to share that.
Be more specific. That you're higher on the. Remember what Xana says. It's not about going for the gold.
It is not about going for the gold. People are talking just like a sidebar brought to you by the Ultimate Life Tool, which is an amazing patented assessment that tells you your motivators, features, your communication centers, and your alchemy. Check the show notes to sign up for a breakthrough session with one of us.
Yeah, we did an episode, I think, on alchemy before, somewhere back in the archives. Yeah, you are more gold. Fair enough. You are definitely a little more particular than I am about these things. But the piece that I really enjoy about this is we've kept, in my mind, that spontaneity of the podcast.
I do like that. I hope our listeners like it. I've been a guest on some cool podcasts lately, and it's good. And it's just true. Time's up. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I gotta go.
Really scripted. And some of them are really scripted, and for different purposes. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, it definitely serves a purpose. It's not how I think our creative spark. I know we're going to look for a little bit more structure moving forward. But
we are. Has that been decided?
Just a little bit,
right,
but this is fun, and I hope our listeners enjoy it.
Yeah. I've listened to I listen to a lot of podcasts, actually. Not a lot, but several. Mm-hmm. And Jocko is like super well prepared, like the Jocko podcast. He does phenomenal with it.
He's prepared, but he and Echo just go.
Especially in the Q&As they do, they'll just go off on things. But when he's covering a book,
for sure.
He's very well researched on it. And then you look at a podcast like Martyr Made or Hardcore History.
Oh my gosh.
And those guys put so much effort into the research and really laying out the story in a very systematic way. It's phenomenal what they do. And I think if we try to do that, we'd go insane.
Probably implode.
And we'd bore the Dickens out of everybody.
I think what it is, we do put a phenomenal amount of research in what we teach. We just happen to put that research in every single day in our studies and our practices with our coaching clients, with our healing clients. I mean, we're teaching you guys, we're talking about stuff that we're studying every single day.
Studying and practicing and experimenting with every day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it is a very different kind of a conversation. And
right.
It continues to evolve. So for those of you that have stuck with us through the whole thing, like we're just so
and
grateful
we'll have more
here.
Guests on too. We'll be bringing some more people on, but for
I want
now,
to say I've really enjoyed the time with you.
Well,
to dive into these laws. It's been really
fun.
Cool.
It is fun, and I have to say I get a little stressed when we have guests on. I'm just like afraid something's gonna not work, and the little Zencaster thing's gonna blow up. Like it's very stressful for me, and I'm not one to get stressed. It's very funny.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, it is like very strange. But
well, maybe the law of non-resistance will help you.
Let's go. The law of non-resistance. Dive in.
But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, from the book of Matthew.
That's a good one. Should we make a t-shirt out of that?
Resist not evil. It's really interesting, I think, to kick off this chapter and this episode to think about it in that context, because that's basically the opposite of what we're taught and what we're trained to do. And it's the opposite of what's happening in our world.
Exactly.
Fight,
push back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is doing is actually creating more of the same.
Right.
It's continuing to fuel energy to exactly what you don't want. And he says it right in the beginning here, true harmony cannot come from inharmony, nor peace from discord.
So phenomenal.
And that is, what is that? I think it was Gandhi that said that there is no violent path to peace.
There is no violent path to peace. There just isn't. Because you're just fueling violence in your pathway trying to get to peace.
Well, and any semblance of, quote unquote, peace that is attained is a false peace.
Yeah, not sustainable.
It's a peace through repression, suppression, and control, which is not freedom, not peace.
Yeah, and we take that, into our daily lives when we have an argument or a disagreement, and if we're trying to force each other to see our way, and we're not respectful enough to agree to disagree, even if someone cries uncle and says like, okay, there isn't a communion there. There isn't a connection.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, I give up. I'm just going to say, okay, because you forced me or I allowed you to force me.
Right.
There's no peace in the conversation.
Yeah. You can just see this everywhere in our culture.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go, God forbid that you're on one of the news sites and you go into the comments section. It's just mayhem.
Oh my gosh.
And and you see it in I definitely don't want to get into a political discussion, but you can see it in our political landscape where it's a us versus them.
Right.
Everybody's, not everybody, but what it appears to be is people taking sides, and then they disparage the other side and really demean them in ways they are making them inhuman.
Right.
And it's the opposite of this law.
Right.
So our way out is this. It's this.
Yeah.
It's non-resistance, but we need to have a better understanding of it, because we will talk more about it later, but that becomes laying down and being weak. And that is not what we're talking about.
Not weak, but meek.
Meek, right? But not weak.
Not weak, meek. Yeah. I thought you said weak.
People have a misunderstanding that non-resistance is weakness.
It is not weakness.
It's not.
It is not.
It's absolutely not.
Right.
So when we talk about this, you look for ways, first and foremost, that nature is expressing this.
You got the good one.
You can see it. You can see it when you look around. And there's ways that people are even practicing this subconsciously. Like he gives a great example in here. I won't read the passage, but he gives a fantastic example about where say a young man is courting a young woman, or this was from the 60s. So, maybe it's whomever is courting the other, and they're courting somebody and they're going to put their best foot forward. Right? They're going to show up and be as well behaved as possible. We're not talking about the Tinder culture here necessarily. We're talking about real people meeting and wanting to form a relationship and wanting to bring somebody into that fold with them.
Right.
They're going to put their best foot forward.
Right.
Why? because it makes it easier for that person to step in.
It does. It makes it easier to connect.
Yeah.
I love the other example I use for businesses where back in the day of 5 and dime dollar, well, now it's dollar stores, but you can imagine like the local downtowns, you've got I remember when I was growing up, there was a store called The Hub. It was the best thing ever. My mom used to take us shopping and take the elevator up to the cafe and all that. It was just, I still remember the ding of the elevator. But the 5 and dime would be downstairs. Now, you even remember this in Hong Kong. You'd see some of the kind of bargain electronic stores downstairs because there's no resistance to walk down the stairs.
Right.
Whereas if you got to walk up, there's just that little bit of like, do I want to take those stairs? So right down the steps.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. How about Amazon?
Oh my gosh.
Want to buy that with one click?
One click.
Turn on your one click shopping.
Yeah.
Boom, done.
Right.
Like it's right there, and they've done that times a million with everything under, like there's nothing that you can't get on Amazon practically.
Amazing.
So they make it easy. They make it easy for you to buy. And I would say, just as a first point of insight for everybody who's listening, is consider in your life, number one is considering what it is that you're resisting and fighting against.
Right.
I'm not saying drop it all right now at this moment. What I'm saying is just consider that.
Well, the observation of will give so much amazing teachings and gems when we just observe like, wow, I think I'm resisting that.
Yeah.
Or I'm wondering, you just notice when we push back or have to have our way, observe.
Where are you fighting?
Yeah.
Where are you fighting in your life?
Yeah. Others or self.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And start to have a look at that, as this conversation unfolds. We may talk about our neighbor. This is back to the book here. We may talk about our neighbor and criticize the methods he used to get ahead. We may fear business conditions. And when we see the graph take a downward swing, we fear for our investments and our job. When we do these things, we are very foolish. In fact, as foolish as a merchant who advertised extensively that on a certain day he would inaugurate the best sale of the year. After getting his patrons all keyed up for the bargains, he barred the doors and closed everybody out. For such an act, the patrons thought he must have gone crazy, or else he did not want any business to come to him. It's as crazy as that.
Yeah. Get him at the door and lock him out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows up in the ways that we disparage others.
Right.
That we get really stuck in that otherness and criticize them for the way that they're doing life.
Well, he's drawing in. I mean, we just talk about how all of these laws are like integrated and intertwined. He's drawing in here that law of thinking or mind action, right? When we're focused on what others are doing wrong and sending out that criticism, it's going to boomerang back to us.
Right.
And then it creates this resistance. So we lose the flow of love, wealth, health, spirituality, etc.
Yeah, you're fueling thought and energy towards something that you do not want.
Yeah.
Same thing in a relationship. If you're focusing on the character defects in that person, that is exactly more of what you're going to see, and you're fueling that.
And you're fueling it. I want to pause here because I know it sounds a little like, what? Don't people choose how they act, etc.? Yes. And it's an amazing thing to understand in both sides of this line that what we send out can make something grow in another. What we send out can make something grow in our bank account or not.
Yeah.
The way we are viewing and the type of energy we're sending really does affect that around us and those around us. It's incredible.
Yeah. And if you're not really convinced on that, just think about the person who's closest to you in your life.
Right.
I'll bet you $100 you know how to push their button.
Yeah.
And I'll bet they know how to push yours.
Absolutely. And when you start to focus on, oh man, they didn't make the bed right.
You know right how to go. Back to the bed. Are we back to the bed?
You've been doing great.
The pillows on
You've been
today.
doing great. Pillows are up, stacked, looking lovely this week. Thank you very much.
Good to know. Good to know. And this is another thing that I see a lot of is that, okay, then people get into their own personal growth. They're on their personal journey. I know that's a lot of our audiences. They're interested in improving themselves, being, better at life, so to speak. And they start working really hard over their limitations or over those things that, that have been holding them back.
Right. Can you give an example?
Well, if you are, I can definitely give an example. Like, let's say that that you tend to overindulge.
Okay.
Let's go with alcohol. And you know that you have this tendency.
I don't have a martini right by here, by the microphone, people.
You do not. This is not directed at you, but I think this is a common one. It's super easy to grab.
Someone has the tendency to overindulge alcohol.
You get done from a long day at work, that's a great way. And they're like, okay, well, I see that this is a pattern. I want to overcome it. Right. And so they start like, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. And then they're feeding more into it.
They're thinking about drinking.
Right? Rather than just you redirecting, cut the cords, move into something different. Right. That's the non-resistance. It's like, I'm going to move into something different, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But the more that it's feeding into that, the more you're going to do it. The more you're going to want to do it.
Because you keep thinking about it.
Because you're fueling that desire.
Yeah, got it. Right? Very good example. Yeah.
Yeah. It's same with anything. Like the addictive nature of the mind functions exactly as that. So if you see something in yourself that you want to change, maybe it's the way that you're reacting to somebody else. And you're like, oh, I totally shouldn't feel that way. This shouldn't make me angry. It shouldn't make me angry. You're going to get angry.
Right.
Well, you're either going to get angry with them
or
you're
yourself.
Going to get frustrated with yourself.
Right.
And that's the opposite of the law of non-resistance.
Right. Really good.
It's not using the law. And we talked about, so I want to circle back to that because we talked about like looking for these laws in nature. And he gives a beautiful example in here. This is something I think about so often, is a little river. And it starts off way up high. It's just like a little stream. Right. And it's got all these little, it's like all these obstacles.
Nooks and crannies.
And it's like finding its way around. The water is such a beautiful example of non-resistance because it's nature.
Right.
But it will find a way.
Yes.
If you have a water leak in your house, that water is going to find its way somewhere. It's going to find its way down.
Yeah.
Right. Same way with that little river, and it just trickles its way down. And every bit of the way it starts to gain strength, and it's going around this thing and it's going around that obstacle. And every step of the way, it's always finding a way. But that river is not going anywhere if it stops at the first boulder and is like, no, I'm going to fight this boulder.
Right. And then it just, it dissolves.
Yeah.
It perishes. This reminds me of, I was just at the workshop for the Vedantins with Sunandaji, Swamiji's daughter, and she actually talked about the Ganges River, this powerful river in India, and how people trek to the top of a mountain to get to the source. They want to see the source of the Ganges River. And when you say source, what happens? You think powerful and big and, omnipresent, just like we would equate the word source. They get to the top, and just like you described, it starts as a trickle, right? From whatever, it's the melting snow or the rain or a stream, it starts as a trickle. Yet the way it functions through the law of non-resistance, it becomes that powerful Ganges River.
It's raging
river.
It's so amazing. And that's just it, that the source, the seed, right. It's tiny. It's so small, but everything grows from that. Another lesson. Oh yeah. He says here, another lesson we may learn from the stream is that when it is small and struggling, it has the most difficult time because it's little,
it's small.
Right? And that's when those obstacles seem so much bigger. Does that stop the river? No. The river and the water keeps moving. It keeps flowing. But that is a time when you have to be particularly agile. Small business, great example.
Yeah. Flexible.
Right? If you try to go head to head with Amazon, dude, you're done.
Yeah. Not going to work.
There's no way. Right? If you've got a little social media platform and you're going to go head to head with Facebook, good luck. Like, There's no way. But if you can find your little uniqueness and
your
really bring
blue
that
ocean,
out,
really.
right? Yeah, your blue ocean, and just make it cool and awesome and really exciting. Well, what you're doing is you're using the law of non-resistance to fill in those little nooks and crannies that the Facebook hasn't, taken over yet, and to fill those gaps, and then you become stronger and stronger as you go until Facebook ultimately absorbs you.
Stop. With that blue ocean, if any of you are familiar with the Blue Ocean Marketing book, it's a great strategy. And the whole point of it is you're not in the red ocean with all the sharks eating each other.
Yeah.
The red ocean is going against the law of non-resistance.
Yeah.
Because just like fighting, competing. When you think about community over competition, right? Finding that non-resistance, just what's your way in, what's your way to touch your customers again and again. That's the blue ocean.
Yeah. I never realized it until you just said that, but that whole book is based on that concept.
It really is.
It's based on the law of non-resistance, and it's brilliant.
Good book to go back to.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good book to rethink some things. And we're skipping ahead here a little bit. Another verse from the Bible, he says, I say unto you, this is Jesus speaking, our big pal, Jesus.
I love Jesus.
The master teacher. He's amazing. I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them that despitefully use you.
Oh man, that takes a strong freaking human being to do that.
Let's think about that for a second. Think about the strength that it takes to not play into the drama.
Right. The strength, but also there's another quote where he talks about as they go on with faith and assurance, they grow stronger and become like a great stream and river, like we talked about. So it is the person with a great amount of faith and confidence and certainty in their own being that can bless their hater.
Well, yeah, yes, exactly right. That's so true. And it's building that within ourselves. Mm-hmm. So let's think about the river, right? And the river's having to find its way. It's using the law and all the natural laws, the law of gravity, of course, to find its way all the way down and to slowly grow itself into an actual river, from a brook or a stream into a river. All right. So think of yourself as that river. And you've got all these humans in your life and all these different things that are coming up. And if you are going head to head with each one of those, you're going to burn yourself out. And it takes you further and further off course.
Right.
Right. As a human being, we are blessed with the ability to choose, the obligation to choose and make a choice for our lives about which direction we're going to go. And we can go against the laws if we choose. The little river can't go against the law unless we get in there and mess with it.
Right.
But a human being can.
Right.
And so we get sucked into all these other little dramas because because you lack the resiliency.
Right. Right. Yeah. Exhausting energy drain.
It exhausts energy, which ultimately takes a physical toll. And it slows us down.
Yeah, there's lack of productivity.
Yeah, you don't get to your goal, ever. If you do, it takes a really, really long time. And you're super beat up by the time you get there.
Right.
So the strength that comes with that is really important, and it's built by blessing them.
Oh man,
that's how you remove the obstacles.
Bless the obstacles. Well, when we bless the obstacles, when we you can go ahead and bless everybody, or you can look upon the challenges in front of you as, okay, what am I going to gain from going through this? I like to carve it out this way for my clients is like when you're right in front of a challenge, you can resist and like knock yourself up against it again and again. Or you can find where the crack of light is, where the opening, and just go through it or go above it. Find that way where you get to the lesson, where you get to the golden gem. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be resisting it. Right.
It really is about finding your way in. Mm-hmm. That's the brilliance of it.
Yeah.
This is true. It's true in warfare. If they do a full frontal assault on something, it's like, then you're just at loggerheads. Right. That's basically the whole story of World War I is trench warfare as people just dug in. And that was so horribly destructive. right? But think of it in a human to human. If you, and I'll bet, let me guess, when you want me to do something, right? I'm not asking you to reveal your secrets, but what I am saying is I'll bet you know a few little things that you need to say to me or do in order to grease the wheels for that, so that I'll just do it with as little resistance as possible.
That would be correct.
Yeah. I'm not asking. I don't want to know.
No, but I mean, let's look at this. It's just common sense, everyone. Think about your relationships. Think about when you tell someone to do something in a certain tone or way. That's resistance from you, and they're going to resist it back. When you can find a tone of voice or ask nicely or do it and just find a way in with another human being, they have a better chance of hearing you. And for any coaches out there as well, it's like, find that way in so they can hear. Do you have to hold them accountable? Yes, if that's the way you coach. I mean, there's an agreement. But everywhere, it's just like, be that stream. Mm-hmm. You know, if we're really being stubborn and wanting to force fit something, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. And then we see, you know, it's like seeing the worst of everybody.
Right.
When that happens, it's exhausting. You're in the resistance at that moment.
Yeah. This is a master teacher. You know, Swamiji is so great at saying the same thing in a million different ways so that you can find your way into that truth for yourself and really get it for yourself. And he does it, you know, he's able to do that. And any master teacher is able to do that because they really see and are present with the human to see where those little gaps are.
Right.
Where is that in?
Right. Exactly.
You know? And it just helps everything to move. He says, let's skip ahead here. Blessings. I highlighted this one because I just thought this was such a cool way to put it. Blessings calls forth the highest good within you. The highest good within you can only attract the highest good from another. Mm-hmm. So it's going back to that idea of blessing. Now, I've had people that are maybe in a conflict with somebody else. Mm-hmm. You know, they're going through divorce or something like that. Somebody's really going off the rails. And they're like, I'm spending all this time like blessing this person and, you know, thinking the best thoughts for them and everything like that. I'm like, stop it. Because what you're doing is you're just fueling into that. It's very nice that you're doing that. It's really cool that you're practicing forgiveness. But if you're going overboard on that, you're
energizing everything that's going on. Got it.
And you're way getting out of your own lane. Right. So how the right use of that is when those things come up within you, right? Is when you cut the cords, bless them, move on.
Right.
You know,
it's like a healthy dose of blessing.
Yeah, for sure. Now, in my internet marketing, you know, as we bring people in, not everybody is the right fit to come into a class or something of the sort. No problem. But you can bet that we definitely get a few different characters in there. And whenever that happens, I have to really check myself because there is a part of me that's like, I want to judge them for, you know, whatever they're doing. But what I found to be the most amazing thing ever is just cut the cords. I bless you. Like, go have an awesome life. 10 more amazing people are coming.
Yeah, exactly.
And it always proves itself to be true.
And I think that is really important that when someone does the over blessing, it's almost like a self-indulgence.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the ego.
I'm so good.
Yeah,
you know,
the ego comes into play. Yeah. It isn't about that. It's just really, it's finding that place of neutrality.
Yeah. And it's the little things. That's where it really goes a long ways. The little ways that your brain starts to get entangled with that you starts to pull you out of your lane and into their stuff or whatever that is. That's the time when you really need it. And and a little bit goes a long ways, right? Because the law of non-resistance, right? Cut the cords.
Well, just think about it. When someone's a jerk on the road, and we really want to flip them off, but instead we smile and wave. It's like a complete pattern interrupt.
I wish I could say that I did that every time. Sometimes
now you can try.
Sometimes I do.
Because it's fun to watch the reaction.
Yeah.
It's like, they're like, what happened? And then they really stop and think. It's a blast.
It's fascinating. You have that little mischievous about you.
I do.
Yeah. And this is another way of saying, if a man resists a situation, he will have it always with him. What you resist persists.
It's going to stick to you.
Yeah.
It's the stickable stuff on the field.
Common theme. Because energetically, it's the chords.
Right.
The chords, you're doing the dance. Same way that when you're walking a dog on a leash, you're on a leash too.
Right.
You just happen to be the one holding the leash, but you are both on a leash.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. So interesting.
Oh man, let go and let flow.
Yeah. Yeah. Let it go. And he talks here about what we attract, what we expect. Well, actually, I want to back up for a second. I want to back up to this part here. Blessed are the meek.
Yeah. The meek thing. Let's discuss the meek because this can be confusing for people.
Yeah. I thought about another example of this where there's the part in the Bible where Jesus is like, he's walking in the desert and he's being tempted. He's being tempted by Satan. And he doesn't go back and fight Satan, and he doesn't go back and like have a knockdown, drag out brawl. What does he do? He says, "Get thee behind me."
Right.
That's it. Non-resistance.
Yeah. Give a direction, get behind me, and keep on your path.
Right. Think about how it's weakness when people get into fights and agitation and all that. What that truly is weakness at its core. It's the weakness of mind to not stay in your own lane, to get drawn into that fight, and then the weakness that lets you sink down to that level.
Right. Right. And it's like he talks a bit about it's being meek to the law. In other words, observing and going with the laws.
Yeah.
Because when you use those, then everything is in flow.
Right. It doesn't mean just lay down.
No.
And be a weakling and let everybody walk all over you. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is being able to allow this law to work with you. Like you just said, it's like being meek to the law, like you surrender to the law.
Right.
And when you're able to do that, you will have more strength. And what's interesting also is that you can't do that without a certain measure of strength.
Absolutely.
You have to build the strength to do it.
Right. Strength, intellect, everything.
Yeah. He says here, this is one that's all caps too. No one can be truly meek who is not strong and spirited.
That I love. Say that again. That's a good one.
No one can be truly meek who is not strong and spirited.
Right. And he references too, it's like to live wisely. You know, that in itself takes an understanding of the law. It takes the wisdom will also bring that certainty and that confidence where, all right, someone's hating all over you or trying to pick an argument. Is that really the best use of your time and energy in your life? I think that can be the ultimate question to put this in a day-to-day perspective is like, really, do you want to exert all that energy fighting with someone or arguing or going against them when there's all these other things that you may want to be doing to make an impact?
Yep. Couples will draw out a divorce for years doing this.
Just fighting.
And spend thousands and thousands of dollars that they didn't have to spend because they just can't.
Someone had to be right.
Right. Somebody had to be right, or they both had to be right, and they stayed in that. Meekness is the strength by which you win an argument by refusing to argue.
It's quite disarming when somebody refuses to argue.
Yeah.
And the other person may try harder, and you're just like, oh, yeah, interesting.
Yeah. This is something, the teachings on this are everywhere in life. And the way to get them out is to look at where the stress and tension and resistance is in your life.
Right. Right.
What are the things that you're fighting against? I mean, if you can just let go all at once and bliss out, like that's awesome. Like go you. But I think for practical, like people who are just on that path, well, see if you can be maybe 5% softer.
Yeah.
Start there.
That's a great tip to get started. Be 5% softer,
right?
Just a bit softer. Because then when we're a bit softer, when we're not full force, whatever, we have we're more aware. Number one, our emotions are more in check. We're more aware of what's going on and we can make wiser decisions.
Right. And it's just that breath that we take, that little bit of receptivity to be, all right, I'm just going to be a little bit softer here. And 5% by 5%, you'll be in a different place in no time.
Right.
Really, really different place. And that energetically, that non-resistance, the more you clamp down, the more difficult it is for energy to flow in your body and in your life.
Right.
So the softer that you become, the more flow and ease that you have. Right. And just to reiterate, it's not saying that everything's going to be easy and perfect. It's just saying that there's much more fluidity and freedom when we have a greater sense of non-resistance.
I love it. How about a couple of tips for everyone to put this to use at home? We talked about observing. Observing,
yeah. And I'd like to use this little passage here as part of that. And it's, again, another one for awareness. He says, every worried thought, every fear, doubt, complaint, argument, and angry thought are but so many boulders, large and small, that you cast into your stream.
Oh, man, dude.
These tend to change your course and to lengthen the time for your goal to be reached. Unite your forces for good with the good that is seeking you. Remove and dissolve every obstacle by blessing it and being willing to understand it. Mark it no longer a stumbling block, but a stepping stone leading to your highest good.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So if we reverse engineer that, it starts with how you see things, how you're marking them in your life.
Absolutely.
Not as an obstacle, but as a stepping stone to build strength and resiliency.
Right.
And we're able to give good energy to those that might not be giving it to us.
Right.
But it's such an easier way than fighting and putting a bunch of negative energy on them, because it's going to boil up in us. So just kind of, okay, they don't like me. Cool. Next.
Yeah. And then the last piece here is basically just stay in your own lane.
Yeah.
Right. Because then you're able to consolidate your forces and align it with what you actually want in your life rather than wasting it on what you don't want.
I think that is one of the biggest takeaways, and not likely a way to connect to the law of non-resistance. But when you put it to use in everyday life, we can see it's like stay in our own lane. I'll have people come to me and say, well, what am I supposed to do about this person or that? Not your gig. It's not your karma. It really isn't your gig unless they work for you or there's a relationship. And then there's ways to have those conversations using the law of non-resistance. But it's so often that people are going to want to get into other stuff just to deflect and just to distract from their own mission and purpose, because it might be a little bit scary. But stay in your lane. That's such a good one.
Yeah, resistance makes for a fantastic upper limiter. Keep you stuck exactly where you're at.
More on that soon. But I love this. I'd love to hear from our listeners, in a way that you're going to put the law of non-resistance to use. Hit us on Instagram. I'm Kisma Wake. Nick is at Nick Hansinger. Do a little post, perhaps you listening to the podcast and do a hashtag Illumination Podcast and tag us. We'd love to see that. Email us, info@sourcemovement.com. Your little checklist, your way of incorporating this ancient law into your life for more love, more wealth, health, spirituality.
Yeah. And I want to close, I think, just with a word of encouragement. I was, throughout a lot of my life, I think just doing things the exact opposite of this and fighting in a lot of ways. And what that would result in for me was a lot of really goods, but not really awesomes.
Yeah, that's true.
Pushing and forcing to a certain level and then just really never transcending that. And in a lot of different areas. And this is a chapter in this book that I've read many times. And it's something that I continue to come back to. And it really is one of the guiding principles that has just made my life personally a lot easier. And I'm fairly certain, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain that it has made life easier for the people around me as well.
Yes, second that.
Yeah, so I'll keep reading it if you will. Not you, but our listeners. Let's stay on track together.
Good. Yeah. Absolutely. So everyone, thank you for being here. And if this episode speaks to you or you know someone that would benefit, please share it. And if you haven't, oh my gosh, it helps us so much if you go to iTunes and give us a rate and a review. And as always, we're sending you so much love, harmony, and peace.
Namaste.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net ep.128.com/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.